I mean, I could look at anyone and be like, yeah, I could look at freaking my own sister and be like, oh yeah, she could murder someone.
But based on what?
Based on the fact that
my point.
JJ, winner.
Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host, Matson Heiner.
Better red than dead.
Javier Ortiz.
What is up, nerds?
And Ian Anderson.
Some shit.
You ever find yourself wondering if you should spend the time, money, or both on a movie? We're here to answer that question for you. Each week we put a movie on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, and let you know our verdict. We appreciate your help growing the podcast. Go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button. Tell a friend about us. Check out our website, whatsourverdict.com, and subscribe to our email list for exclusive content and updates. Today we're reviewing Rebecca. The Netflix original was released October 21st, 2020. It's written by Jane Goldman and Joe Shrapnel, directed by Ben Wheatley. Stars Lily James, Armie Hammer, Kristen Scott Thomas, Ann Dowd, Sam Riley, and Tom Goodman Hill. A young newlywed arrives at her husband's imposing family estate on a windswept English coast and finds herself battling the shadow of his first wife, Rebecca, whose legacy lives on in the house long after her death. If you haven't seen this movie and you want to avoid spoilers, go ahead and pause here. Go watch our spoiler-free review on Facebook or YouTube. See if it's a movie you even want to watch first. Once you've watched it, come back, pick up where you left off. If you don't care about spoilers, stick around. We're about to spoil the shit out of this thing. First of all, why is this movie so long? So instead of just saying that, let's talk about how long this movie is. What are some things that were in this movie you think could have been cut out?
An hour in the middle.
I was looking for a little more specificity there, Javier.
I don't know. I think the problem I had with it was that it was kind of misleading with the way that it led through the story. So I could do without 30 minutes of showing me that she is some poor person who fell in love with a rich person. I don't need 35 minutes to show me that. And I also don't need an hour of you showing me, yeah, people don't like her. I don't need everything that was going on, especially because none of that really leads into the twist, So it just felt too long for what it delivered.
Yeah, I think for me, we talked about this in the spoiler free. It really feels like three different parts of a movie. And I find myself gravitating more towards Javier, where they focus too much on the love story, the chick flick for the first 30 minutes. I would have liked to have seen after that, show me something more about Rebecca. They tried to build this mystery of this woman that we never met. And I would have loved to just seen more scenes about how she was devious, how she had these men wrapped around her fingers, how her husband was afraid of her, hated her, all these things. And I think that would have been a better driving point for me to have some of those flashbacks that then would have created this urgency and suspense as we got closer to the end, instead of focusing on the romantic 30 minutes and some of the buildup of just walking around a really cool mansion.
There's through the middle part of the movie, Rebecca's this, I don't know, she's seeing Rebecca around the house. Yeah. And it's kind of this thriller. And then there's a hard gear change where suddenly it becomes this mystery murder of who did what. I didn't get that. It didn't fit.
So I'm going to, for the sake of having a differing viewpoint, the reason for that is because the whole idea is to watch this character progression and this whole struggle that the main character, that Lily James, goes through. And I can't remember her character's name. Tell on for or how memorable this movie was.
De Winter.
Yeah, Mrs. De Winter. Anyway, so for her, it was about, she fell in love with this man, and you can see it was an extreme love story for both of them. That's why I spent so much time on it in the beginning, to see how deeply in love these two were. But then she gets back to the mansion, and now she feels like the second woman, even though she's the wife, she's in charge, she runs the household. And if we know too much about Rebecca and the fact that she was actually a wretched bitch, then we lose that ability to watch her struggle. Why would she struggle if she's finding out that, or if we know how? Yeah. So we needed to not know. That's why you don't know anything about Rebecca, because you have to look and go, man, this woman must have been wonderful. Everyone loves her. All the men want to sleep with her. This guy lost her, and he's been a wreck ever since. So why did he even marry this second girl? And I can get why she's feeling, and he gets angry every time he brings her up. She brings him up. So that's the whole reason for it. That's just me to be the opposite side of that.
That's their twist or something. And it just didn't, I guess it just didn't work for for me.
So the suffering that she went through is what happens when you marry someone after knowing them for a week, right? So I didn't I didn't need an explanation there. I'm like, he's like, marry me, you stupid idiot fool, or whatever he says, which I'm like, first of all, you can't speak to her that way. And I was like, you guys have literally known each other for like 4 days. So this is going to go terribly. And what do you know? It went terribly. So.
Yeah, but it only went terribly because of the enigma that is Rebecca. He actually loved her. He just couldn't get away from the fact that he thought he was going to go to jail eventually, or she was going to leave him if he told her that he killed his previous wife.
So what was the long con here? That he was just going to be an enormous asshole to her every time the name Rebecca came up until they died? That was the plan here?
I'm not saying it was going to be a healthy relationship, which is one of the other
pictures
topics.
of Rebecca all over this house, which, by the way, that one dude, Frank, was like, she's the most beautiful creature I've ever seen. And then, like, it turns out that picture in the hallway is of her. And I was like, I was 100% convinced that was your great aunt.
It was his great aunt. You missed the whole point. The lady had her dress up like the great aunt, which was his favorite.
Oh my gosh.
In order to piss him off because his former wife, Rebecca, had dressed up the same way at the party the year before.
Oh, got it.
So, yeah.
Got it. I did miss that. I did miss that.
So
no, you never actually see Rebecca's face.
it brings me to something that I didn't write down that I sent to you, JJ, but I wanted to know, like, why didn't Mr. De Winter, and I'm sure there's kind of a logical answer for this, but why did he let the house stay the same? I just want to know what everyone's thoughts are. I have my thought for that, but I think that was a big question as I was watching this. So I'm like, well, if he, why didn't he just change this? Why did he let his house lady run the show?
Because he's a little bitch.
One answer.
He even admits it. He's like, I would never get a divorce because of my family name or whatever. I'm like, dude, grow a pair. Come on, man.
Okay. First of all, it's 1930s England, and he's a lord. So there's certain rules at that time that they still followed. One of which was
Javier.
The man actually had nothing to do with the house. He owned it. I mean, it was his family's estate. But when it came to the decorating and the parties and all of that, running the house was the wife's job, was the lady of the house and her.
Yeah, but is that a rule? Like, he can't have any say in it?
Well, I'm sure he can have conversations, but when it came to decisions, the reason he wouldn't have made changes up to that point was because he left shortly after she died on his little trip around the world where they met. But two, they wouldn't have made changes until the new lady of the house had been established.
Interesting. Still holds true in my world today. Our house changes seasons because of my wife. Thank goodness. She's great.
Oh yeah, I want nothing to do with decorating. Casey asked me, what should we do? I'm like, I don't give a shit. That's why our walls down in the basement are purple.
And Mr. De Winter didn't find it creepy that she left it the exact same and just like the brush and everything. And I think what also tripped me up with this movie not being a thriller is he had this whole sleepwalking thing and the music they used, and he went into that room and you just expected like there to be more creepiness or stuff popping out where like Javier would have been afraid, but it just never went there. But it seemed like they wanted you to think it was going to be that.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to it being a poor mimic of a Hitchcock film. Hitchcock was so good at visuals, and really Hitchcock's version made you feel like either her ghost was there or she was still there and her death was a lie. And so every time he would sleepwalk or things would happen at night, like you'd start to question, is Rebecca actually alive? Is she still there? Is she sneaking around the house? Is he getting up in the middle of the night and going and visiting her? So there's a lot of questions, and Hitchcock just does it better. But I one of my notes is, why the hell is this woman Danvers? Why the hell is she still fucking hired? So I was blown away that she was still there. So I can't answer why he would let her stay and be on, other than it's easier for him because she's somebody that's there. And he obviously had respect for her when they first get home. I don't think he realized how batshit she was, which
super crazy. Like,
that takes me
second level crazy.
Yeah, she was nuts. Well, and that takes me to my next theme. So I have two things. The first one is obsession. I want to talk about like the concept of obsession, because it was obvious that Mrs. Danvers was obsessed with Rebecca. And even at the end, which they changed the end a little bit, she talks about she was like, Rebecca was the only person that she ever loved. And so there was a blatant obsession there. Like, you guys ever know anybody or seen anything where someone's been that obsessed with someone or something?
In my actual life, like that to her level? I mean, I'm honest. Obviously, no way. Like,
Yeah, I don't think so. Because that's mental, dude. Like, you need help.
It's crazy woman.
Well, and hers is crazy too, but there's a certain level of obsession with the De Winters at this point, the new De Winters too. Because think about it. That's my next question, and it'll kind of blend into this whole obsession thing. Would you guys cover for your wives, or would they cover for you if you were in that situation? So obviously, we find out that Mr. De Winter, Max, has killed Rebecca, shoots her because she taunts him, and then scuttles her boat.
Whoa. We're gonna pause there. It's not like she was like roasting him and he blew her head off or whatever.
Hold on. What do you mean it wasn't like she was roasting him?
She was sleeping with other dudes, like her cousin. Her cousin got her pregnant. Then she came back from an escapade and was like, "Hey, if I got pregnant, no, you could never prove that it was or wasn't yours." And then she pulled out a gun, put it in his hands, and put it up to her own chest and said, "If you shoot me, then you'll finally have your freedom." And then he shot.
Okay, we're on the same page. I thought when I said because he taunted, like you were saying, yeah, but he shouldn't have shot her ass. I was like, no, hold on.
No. I was saying to his defense. I'm like, okay, no. Like, she totally deserved to be. Okay, actually, that is one of my questions, but we'll go.
Yeah, we'll get there. But if for some reason your wife were to, let's say this whole situation, because we see Lady De Winter, the new Mrs. De Winter, covers for Max in the end and tries to keep him out of jail for killing Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Would your wife do that shit for you?
Allie's not covering for me. She's too straight arrow. No way.
I don't know. That's a really
like
good
Nicole
question.
might, Javier. I feel like she has that in her.
I think she likes me enough to prefer to see me at home and not in prison, but I don't know, dude. Asking someone to cover up murder with you is like a big ask. I do it.
So that's the reverse. Ian, you're kind of on an island on this one because
Ian, are you single? That's fine.
Dude, if we're talking about,
I don't have to worry about killing my wife.
I live next to a police station, so like one right there, I keep thinking about how practical. Like what type of murder is this? Because if it's one where I'm like, hey,
it's one in a giant ass estate.
She shot someone, like there was no witnesses, it could be potentially covered up. Yeah, I'm probably all in. But if it's like out in the middle and like am I going down with a sinking ship? I don't know. Like,
well, let's say, for the sake of the situation, you or Allie killed someone, successfully hid the body for like a year, and then they discover the body.
Oh, yeah, I'm going down. I'm going down. Because at that point, the law is going to take me down anyways. I'm riding and dying with that. If I made the decision to help cover that shiz up, I'm in.
What about you, Javier? If you're in the same situation, you cover?
Oh, yeah, I totally would.
Hey, Interesting. What good is being married at that point?
Actually,
JJ, what about you? You haven't said anything.
But here's the thing, though. I have a kid, so I have to take that into account. Because if we're both in prison, what happens to our kid, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If I didn't have a kid, yeah, absolutely.
What about you, JJ?
I think it depends on if Casey likes me that week or not. Like, if she'd cover for me. Like, I'd like to think that she would, but I just don't know. And I don't know. Like, I can't say. That's why the speculation thing's for me kind of interesting, right? Because in my brain, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'd cover her. I'd figure it out. But at the same time, I'm like, what? In that situation, you're like, oh, you murdered someone. I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I mean? Like,
you murdered your spouse.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
you murdered your previous spouse. But then on the other hand, man, if you hadn't done it, we wouldn't be together. Like, so I don't know. I'd like to say that I would, but part of me, my conscience says I'd like to say that I wouldn't, but I think I probably would.
That was one part of the movie that kind of made sense to me when Mr. De Winters was explaining, like, yeah, I killed Rebecca. I didn't want to tell you because I was confident you were going to leave. I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good guess there, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, remember my last wife? I put a bullet in her, dude. But don't worry, I like you like way better.
Well, and that's part of this whole thing, right? So it's kind of a funny to watch because we talked about they have this love story. It was a week long, but then she spent months in this home feeling like that he still loved Rebecca more than he loved her. And so now all of a sudden she's got to be relieved to a certain degree because now she realizes her husband actually loves her, wants to stay with her, has been worried about her leaving, which is why he's been getting angry about her bringing it up because he doesn't want to talk about it, hasn't told her. So now she's getting everything that she wants other than her husband's facing prison time.
Yeah. How funny was that like the best news she's received in months is that her husband's a murderer?
She just leans into that shit. You should have told me. We'd have figured this shit out forever ago. Oh, man.
So my real question is it okay to just shoot someone who's being mean to you? That doesn't seem like the right response.
I mean, you make it sound like it's like a playground scuffle or something.
She's not washing the dishes. She's not doing. Dude, she was straight up cheating and actively cheating with her cousin. And people have killed people for a lot less.
So if your wife is just like, "Hey, I slept with another dude," you're like, "Well, it was nice knowing you."
It wasn't just one other dude. Like it sounded like it was a ton of people. And I'm just saying, people have killed people for that.
How many times can a woman cheat on a man before the man is justified in killing her?
I said nothing about
or vice versa.
That sounds like the argument you guys are making, because the argument that I'm making is you should never shoot your spouse, no matter how many times they cheated on you.
You know what's funny about Javier? Like every time we get in these topics, like Javier loves violence in movies, but he's always so, to his credit, against this type of violence. And I love that about you, but it's so funny to me because you make a pointed exception about don't justify killing a woman if she screws you over.
I asked a question and you guys answered by saying, "Hey, she cheated on him."
I didn't even finish it either. You're just implying you're leading the witness.
I didn't answer.
Okay, anyone who's listening to this, just rewind 2 minutes.
No. I didn't answer because all I was busy doing was laughing at the fact that you made it sound like it was some sort of playground scuffle. Like, because, she was mean to him. No, she was fucking her cousin and half the village and told him she was pregnant and going to take away his family name and estate, which is the only thing that this man has. If this happens, he's out on his ass, poor pauper, and disgraced and can't do anything. So, I mean, the stakes are a little bit more than, she just called him an asshole.
True, because if she came out and said, "I have a bastard son," then he would kick him out. Otherwise, he's still lord of the house. He just has to pretend like this kid is his kid. He wouldn't be kicked out of his own inheritance.
No, but okay, imagine this, if you will. You're married to the lord of this house. You have a son who's now in line to be the lord of this house at no matter what age. What's keeping this man alive at that point? Because we already know she's not against fucking half the village having a kid with her cousin.
Yeah, but being promiscuous is not the same as murdering someone.
No, but she's obviously ready to do that. She got him to kill her so that she didn't have to live with cancer, which I get.
We can't I'm not saying throw in the word obviously, like obviously if she has a gun, and obviously if she's fucking 20 guys at the same time, then obviously she's willing to kill people. That's not a lot. No, there is a lot of logic there that you're gonna have to justify in order to convince me that this dude's life was on the line.
See, what you're doing is making it so that I'm saying because she sleeps with a bunch of guys, she's willing to murder. That's not the case. No.
And then you put in the word obviously.
I said obviously with the scheming that she's done. She's having sex with a bunch of guys, lied, which we find out about, having a child that's going to then she's going to use to take away this man's family name, or even if she lets him live to a ripe old age and die, at some point he has to live with the fact that a bastard child is going to now be the Lord of Manderley.
And that's a good enough reason to shoot someone?
I'm not saying it is or it isn't. What I'm saying is I don't think it's far-fetched for me to believe that sometime during the night this man's going to get his throat cut or die because he's getting smothered or whatever it is, or he's going to get shot in a boat, get scuttled, so that her son can now own Manderley and she runs this house. I'm not saying that's a big stretch for my imagination.
Because a woman likes to have sex doesn't mean that she's a violent psychopath.
Never said that's true. You keep going back to this sex. She likes sex. Game on. You're married. You shouldn't be doing that shit. But you like sex. I'm fine. That doesn't make you a murderer. But all the rest of the scheming doesn't make it hard for me to look at you and go, you could murder someone.
I mean, I could look at anyone and be like, yeah, you could. I could look at freaking my own sister and be like, oh yeah, she could murder someone.
But based on what?
Based on the fact
that my point.
JJ, winner.
So your point is because she schemes, she could be a murderer.
Sure.
Okay, so
the JJ, level of scheming to me.
So you could be a murderer.
Okay, look,
Matt's schemed, so he could be a murderer, and both of you guys like sex. So far, you guys are sounded a lot like Rebecca.
And what schemes are you referring to that I like?
Like trying to trick me into watching that freaking TV show.
Pointed difference.
Bribing me with food.
Pointed difference between an open scheme where I tell you I'm going to feed you to watch a scary show, and I am not having a child, but I'm going to tell you that I'm having a child because you know that I've been sleeping around, and it's a point of fact.
But that's not a scheme if she knows she's going to die. That's just being a dick.
That's a scheme to get herself murdered, and if she's willing to go that far, she's willing to murder someone. That's my point.
No. Wanting to die and wanting to kill someone else are two different things. I'm sorry. No.
To me, they're not that far apart. If you're willing to go that extreme, you're willing to go to another.
Which, by the way, the film never alludes to any of this. The film just alludes to the fact that Mr. De Winters is butthurt because she's sleeping with her cousin, and she might be
that's
pregnant.
Not a big thing. That's like it's horrible.
Seriously.
I'm not saying it's not a big thing,
that's terrible.
Is it enough to kill your own wife?
I believe there's a lot of people that could certainly be at a bad place, and
there are a lot of people that have murdered people for far less.
I'm not saying that there's not. I'm just saying the situation we're dealing with right now is you've got a woman who's married to a man who sleeps with a bunch of people, and then that dude killed her.
That's a gross oversimplification.
Yours is a gross overcomplication.
No.
You're like bringing up shit that the movie doesn't even bring up. You're just pulling stuff out of your ass. I'm talking with the facts that the movie has presented. I'm not making stuff up.
But to your point, Javier,
to the fact
you're talking about scheming and her possibly killing him. That was never brought up.
The only thing that I did was speculate that she could commit murder. Everything else was based on fact. And I'm making that assumption.
I've done zero speculating.
No, you asked a question, which you asked me to speculate.
My theory doesn't need speculation.
No, you didn't have a theory. You stated facts and said, what the fuck do you think justifies murder? And I gave you my speculation. You asked me to speculate. Don't judge me for speculating, fucker, when you asked me to do it.
That's fair. I just think you're wrong.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. And for the record, no, I don't think there's anything that justifies murdering another person.
Oh, now we're backpedaling. Okay.
No, I never. Not motherfucker. If I can punch, it's a good thing we're virtually recording. I don't know if
I would go that. For our listeners that know Javier well, he likes to argue and to get his point across. But let's not forget there was a point in this whole thing when he did not have a rebuttal, and that was my favorite part.
Well, the rebuttal was why do I think that people would murder other people?
Your sister. You said I could call my sister a murderer, and I said
I don't know how many of my sisters watch this, but they're crazy. Have you guys ever seen that like Tosh.0 where he's like, it drives me crazy when their serial killers' neighbors find out that they were serial killers? Like, oh my gosh, I could never have pictured it. He's like, really? You couldn't have pictured it at all? He's like, I could picture my own mother murdering someone based on the way that she treated me as a child. Anyway, yeah, I did. I was at a loss of words there for a second, but I think the point still stands that I'm the only one here who thinks it's wrong to murder your wife. So.
Oh God, no! I don't think you should murder your wife. Now, I can't say that I don't understand why he did it. I can't say that put in the same situation under the same circumstances at the same time frame with the same things at stake that I wouldn't. I don't think anybody can say that there's no way that they would.
I can. I wouldn't murder her.
You want to murder her? Is that what you said?
No, I said I can. I wouldn't murder her.
Okay. It sounded like you said I can. I want to murder her.
To be fair, based on what I know about Rebecca now, I totally want to.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I can't say that I wouldn't. I wish I could, but I don't think until I'm in that situation and feeling those feelings, it's easy for me to stand outside and say, dude, she cheated on you. Get over it. A lot of people get cheated on. She was having a kid by another man. Now, that happens to people as well. Doesn't give you the right to kill, but I can't say that being taunted over it and it thrown in my face, I wouldn't if I had a gun in my hand and was being told to shoot her by her. I'd like to think I wouldn't, but no guarantees.
I think the kicker is too that if he wouldn't have killed her, she would have died of cancer like pretty soon.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
Hey, if I have signed consent from someone, can I shoot someone?
No.
No.
That seems a little unfair.
But then Javier asks stuff like that, and we always go back to one of my favorite quotes of Javier of all time about if you kill one murder, then there's another murder. But if you kill two murderers, then there's one less murder. That came from Javier, and that leads me to believe I'm just not sure what he would decide to do in the situation with.
Hey, I'm just
Javier
a
can look
guy.
at anyone and see them killing him. He looks at his own sister and sees a murderer, so we better be careful.
I was raised by women. Some people were raised by wolves. I was raised by women. They are capable of killing people. I'm convinced.
Oh, I think anybody's capable.
No, well, I'm not. I want her to fly.
Oh, God. Done. Right?
What is happening right now?
I have no idea. Something tickled Mattson.
I just can't take Javier seriously right now. All the movies I've seen, all the John Wicks, the Equalizers, I'm not a murderer. All the time Driver's like, oh yeah, that'd be so sick to shoot someone like that.
Even more so is the fact that at least 5 out of the 6 last podcast that Javier's been on, he said that he's argued the case for carrying a weapon.
I thought you were going to bring that up, to be honest.
Javier's going to whip the gun out and shoot to the right. He's like, don't make me shoot you. And everyone now knows he won't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like I literally thought that's what you're going to bring up, because I'm like fully prepared to defend my house with firearms. And I'm over here like, I want her to fly.
Like, he's over here. It's like 2 pops be like John Wick.
Literally
bitch.
the last recording or whatever the boys was, I talked about how someone tried to steal my son. I would kill everyone in the park.
Well, and the last recording, he talked about killing a tiger, for Christ's sake. Like,
okay. Who wouldn't?
Unless it was coming at me, I wouldn't.
That was the context that I was in.
It was we were talking about the mountain lion guy in Utah.
Yeah.
I would have shot at the ground because the mountain lion's going to run. He threw a rock at the damn thing and it ran.
That was my point. And I was like, with other creatures.
You said you were going to shoot a tiger.
Dude, if it was a tiger, I would shoot a tiger. Yeah. Tigers don't fuck around.
Oh, God.
But if that tiger was sleeping with other tigers, you probably wouldn't.
If I was married to the tiger and the tiger was sleeping around,
you probably wouldn't shoot that tiger.
Things, yeah.
And if she just told you that she's about to have a lion's baby, Jesus.
How am I the one being made fun of for saying you shouldn't shoot your wife?
Okay.
We can end this now. I'm feeling real good. This is great.
That was
the
funny.
most I've laughed in like 3 weeks. Javier took his jacket off. It's serious.
I'm getting hot and flustered. Hotter over here.
He's feeling attacked.
Oh my God.
I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
Let me ask you this, because there was the big twist, right? Where we find out that Rebecca's the enemy, that he killed her. And then it goes into this mystery kind of save Max. And then we find out, of course, even later that she has cancer. That's why she wanted him to shoot her. So there's a lot of twists to this. If it had been done better, what do you guys think about a movie like that, where the whole time you're watching this going, what is going on? I feel like this is a weird love story versus anti-love story. And then all of a sudden it's like this murder mystery, big twist. I think, this comes again from the Hitchcock version, and especially if you read the book, it's even better. The twist is really great. The way it's played is really great because you're focused on this relationship. Why can't he get over Rebecca? Why is everyone so infatuated with Rebecca? And this poor woman comes in and she's doing everything that she possibly can in order to please everyone and to be the best person she could and the best wife. And she's really sweet and nice. And now all of a sudden you find out that she's been fighting against just this wretched human being. Do you guys think if it had been done better that it could have been a cool twist?
Yeah, I actually thought the twist was the most interesting part. My only problem with that, though, is that he shoots her and that wasn't brought up like in evidence, right? Probably because her like body was decayed and it was 1930s, right? So the only thing that was brought up in evidence was like a couple of conversations and stuff. But I think the most damning piece of evidence was that the boat had a punctured hole, right? Mm-hmm. So like he showed it was like deliberately damaged. So my problem with that is if he had just like taken the boat out and thrown her in the water, like her body in the water, or like buried her body in the dozens of acres that they have or something, then all of this could have been avoided. I just thought it was a really stupid mistake, which like I would like to justify that it was him panicking, trying to figure out what to do. But like you have to go through some thought processes to figure out how to like puncture the bottom of a boat, right? So anyway, anyway, twist was cool. I just thought it was like the evidence and stuff like that. I just figured it would be an easy crime to get away with as a rich dude in the 1930s.
Well said. I agree.
Well, and I think he would have if that storm hadn't broken the ship up, because that's something that they don't explain in the movie, that they do in the other movie. And in the reason they have that big storm the night of the party or whatever it was, the night that it happens. And what happens is this boat had been sunk in that storm, the waves and everything else had shook her body loose from the boat. If that storm hadn't hit, he probably would have never, it wouldn't have been an issue at that point, because she would have kept decomposing. The ring would have fallen off, which is the only way they were actually able to identify her.
I guess I was going to say, which is another crazy thing. Why wouldn't he take that off? But I guess if he was trying to make it look like a suicide, she probably would have taken it off.
Yeah, it's an interesting twist. And like I said, they did it in such a better way. So Javier had another interesting question that he asked, and is why is it that we find ourselves rooting for a murderer?
Right. Did no one else think that was weird? Where you like find out he's a murderer and you're like, oh, thank goodness Rebecca's side. Right. So like the whole time, the biggest problem in this movie is that she doesn't fit in with the help, right? Which, no offense, but like, who the fuck cares? And then suddenly you find out he's a murderer, and that's like good news.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I mean, think of all the movies that we watch that we root for murder. What does that make us feel about John Wick killed, I don't know how many people in the 3 movies that we've seen are equal. Like, I feel like a lot of movies are like that, though. But this has more of a morality twist to it. But I guess we're saying this is cold blood murder, so we should feel differently.
Well, I don't know. I found myself rooting for a criminal in Shot Caller.
Shot Caller, yeah.
So, I mean, and this guy was a brutal ass criminal. Like, it wasn't like he was murdering the shit out of people left and right. And he did a couple things right. Does that make him a good person? I mean, I guess that's the question, right? So we find out that Rebecca was this awful human being. Fine. But does that make Max a good person? Because we sure root for him like he was. Because I even found myself going, man, I hope he doesn't have to go to jail. That would suck. Then I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Because I think you can paint the picture. Like if we had a separate movie where it's following Rebecca around and we talked about how like you could paint the picture that Rebecca was just sleeping with the other people because she wanted to be loved and she was neglected, right? And then she's murdered and then the guy gets out of prison and it would be unjust, right? So it's just like the narrative and like the point of view that it's coming from. I just thought it was really interesting that I was like, oh, he's a murderer. Thank goodness.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point. That's the scary thing about the world we live in is with a little bit of music and dialogue, you can kind of twist anything that you want to the way that works for you. And a lot of people will believe it. And I think that's true in movies, politics, religion, work, whatever it is. If you spruce it up enough, people are going to take the drug.
That's true. Drink the Fresca.
Drink the Fresca.
That's drink the Fresca. Nice plant right there, Javier. But I think, I mean, you bring up that's a really deep point you're making, Harvey, but I mean, it's so true. Like we have numerous examples in all quadrants of life about that.
Interesting. Good question, buddy.
I was making up for my outburst.
It was such a fun outburst, though.
I love
that. Was like a 15-minute like rant between all of us, and then Ian just playing like babysitter and putting in some good comments here and there.
My favorite part was JJ getting flustered. He's like, "Motherfucker!"
It's because I had 3 different rebuttals in my head, and I couldn't get single fucking one of them out.
So the other day, my sister's daughter did something. She like hit me because I was annoying her. And my sister's like, hey, apologize to Javier. And she's like, I'm sorry, but you were being really annoying. And I'm like, honestly, that's how adults apologize to me. They're like, I'm sorry, but like, I'm not sorry. I'm like, yeah, no, I get it.
See, that's why you must appreciate me, because I just don't apologize. Like, don't be a dick. I won't be an asshole.
Yeah, no problem.
Exactly. That was funny. All right. Well, I think we've talked a lot about this movie. I think we've covered some points that obviously weren't great about it, some things that were interesting, and it obviously brought up some thought-provoking questions. So good conversation. So you guys ready to rate this thing?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so if you're just joining us for the first time, we do a 0 to 5 rating scale. 0 means an absolute piece of garbage movie. 5 meaning it was art of perfect. Wow. 5 means it was a perfect piece of art. See, this is what Javier does to me. He gets me all flustered.
You're having a stroke, dude?
Maybe. So 0 to 5 is what we'll rate it. We'll start with Javier.
Okay. Help me remember. The worst movie was She Dies Tomorrow.
Yeah, everybody but me gave it a 0.
What was the second worst movie we saw?
That's a great question.
Let me
We gave something like halves and ones.
I mean, Bill and Ted was close.
Shut up.
Artemis.
So I think it was a little bit better than Artemis Fowl. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a 1.5. There was potential here. There's pretty good acting, interesting twist, interesting like morality questions. There was a lot of potential. It was just a swing and a miss, I think. So 1.5. I'm not going to watch it again.
Ian.
I thought it wasn't, I don't know if I'd call it worth watching, but I got through it and it was a little interesting. Like has been said, the acting was all right. I know we thought this was a horror, but the scariest thing that I found was what she was doing with her cousin. With all that,
maybe the cousin gave her cancer.
With that, I think I'm going to go like a 2 because I thought it was like more interesting than like a Bloodshot. So we'll leave it there.
That's fair.
Mattson.
Yeah, I'm going to give this movie a straight up 2. Very well acted. I mean, it has some marquee actors that if you like them in other movies, they don't disappoint in how they act for their characters. I think the visuals of this movie, I mean, if you want to see a sweet estate, some beautiful water, kind of beach, kind of like a Clue, Knives Out type of look. You've got that in this movie. I would think that's going for you. I think like a lot of people said, there's potential for this movie. It just didn't get to the finish line. So if this is something that you watch, I don't think you're going to walk away disappointed like you watch She Dies Tomorrow. But I think you're leaving a lot on the table and there's better things out there. But solid 2, never watching this again.
Yeah, I think the acting held this movie up for me, especially Lily James and Kristen Scott Thomas. They were amazing in this show. Very believable. Especially Kristen Scott Thomas, who usually plays very nice characters, playing this just wretched housekeeper or main staff. She was just horrid, but she did it so well. All the slinking around and the plots and schemes, and she would definitely murder someone. So
she definitely was.
Slinking around. That's a new one for me. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like that.
I didn't say slinkying around. So anyway, I really enjoyed the acting. To Mattson's point, it's a very beautiful movie. A lot of cool visuals in the beginning when they're on the vacation and, the beach and the sun, a lot. And then it switches to a more dark overtone, which fits the theme of the movie when you get to the estate and things start going a little less than perfect like they were on the vacation and the beach. And really enjoyable movie as far as that goes. It was slow. I was a little disappointed because, again, I knew what was happening because I'd seen the original one. And they just didn't do it as good as it could have been. I was hoping that they added some different twists. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys about one of the things that they changed was in the original, he didn't shoot Rebecca. They were in an argument. She grabbed him. He swung her arm away or something, and she fell and hit her head and died. Because in the 1960s, Hollywood you could not make a movie when someone killed their spouse and got away with it. So they had to change how she died so that it fit that rule for Hollywood. So in this one, they actually go back to the original book version, which is that he shot her. In the book, he shoots her through the heart and then scuttles the boat to make it look like suicide.
Hollywood, what I took away from that, Judge, is there is no rules in Hollywood now.
No, they don't care anymore in Hollywood, which, I mean, whatever. There's a certain amount of realism, right, to that. There are probably people that get away with murder all the time. But that was why they changed it for that one. So I thought that was an interesting fact anyway. Yeah. But wasn't great. I'd give it a 2, less than average. I wouldn't watch it again. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to go back and watch the original. I'm going to read the book because they were better. Cool. There's our ratings. Mattson, why don't you tell them where they can find us?
Yeah, you can find us wherever good podcasts are found. If you're trying to listen to our reviews, Spotify, Apple, Ghana. If you want to check out our spoiler frees, check us out on YouTube, Facebook. We are putting them up on IGTV on Instagram as well. And then check out our website to see what's upcoming for the month of November. Got some cool things coming your way. And then get excited for some holiday things we'll sprinkle in December as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Mattson. And don't forget to join us next week. We're going to be reviewing Jon Favreau's movie Chef. So keep an eye out for that on the following Monday, next week. All right, guys, that's our verdict. We appreciate you tuning in. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Send a magic out.
Da-na-na-na-na.